Today on Mr. Media, I'll talk to NBC News correspondent Keith Morrison. Tonight, Friday, November 4th at 10 p.m. on Dateline NBC, he'll be delivering the story of a fatal two-car accident on a Montana highway. Stick around. Was it an accident? Or was it murder?
Well done.
Thanks. So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is a Mr. Media interview. You know, MrMedia.com, MRmedia.com. Stop by and check it out. There are more than 900 archived celebrity and pop culture interviews for your listening pleasure. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of defensive driving enthusiasts who can't imagine being any other way but responsible behind the wheel in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. When Keith Morrison is telling... Sorry?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
okay.
That's fine. I'm fascinated. I'm listening.
Okay, thanks, Keith. When Keith Morrison is reporting a story, his tone is so steady, his timing so perfect, you might just miss a crucial detail by the exactness of it. That is to say, if Silk had a voice, it might sound like Keith Morrison. Personally, I think it has everything to do with his early years on Canadian TV, long before he joined NBC News in 1986. He went on to spend much of the last quarter century working his way up the food chain from local anchor at KNBC News in LA to correspondent for Dateline NBC, which of course airs Fridays at 10 p.m. Keith Morrison, welcome to Mr. Media.
I'm so thrilled to be here.
Thanks, Keith. Hey, is there a school where guys like me can learn to sound like guys like you?
I don't think you want to go to that school, Bob. You sound just fine the way you are.
Well, you're kind. You're kind. But tell me this. You have a great voice in this delivery. Is this like a genetic thing? If I had the opportunity to talk to your dad, would he sound somewhat similar?
Well, I don't know. My daddy was a preacher out in the middle of the Canadian prairies, and my mother was the organist and choir leader. So they came as a team. I would listen every Sunday to my dad's sermons and sing in the choir. And my mother always used to say, when you're trying to get something across to people, cadence is everything. And maybe that has something to do with it, I suppose, if there's any talent in there at all.
Well, that does explain it, because I was going to ask you. If there was someone who, and I was thinking, in your early career days, if there was someone who shaped the way that you present yourself and your information. But obviously, it actually goes back further than that. You had an unintended role model for what you do.
Yeah. Well, and it never hurts. That's what everybody, I probably would have gone into that business in an earlier age, but when I grew up, the thing to do was to be on the radio.
It worked out. Listen, it worked out for you. So Keith, tell us a little bit about this Montana highway fatality story that you're presenting tonight.
Well, this was a kind of a story that was heard around the world, very briefly, obviously, at the time. But it was one of the first cases of a fatal car accident, a famous fatal car accident caused when somebody was texting as driving. And in this case, it was a girl who was breaking up, or appeared to be breaking up with her boyfriend. Certainly she was having a spat with him. And he had said, "We're through," and she was texting him as she was driving home from his house, threatening that she would kill herself or crash her car. And sure enough, a couple of minutes later, she veered into oncoming traffic, and there was a fatal car accident. And the 35-year-old, lovely, pregnant woman in the other car was killed, along with that woman's 13-year-old son. So it was a terrible tragedy. And all of the area around Kalispell, Montana, where this occurred, was deeply invested in this story as it progressed. Justine, the young woman who caused the accident, was in the hospital for months. She was very badly injured, and even now carries scars of the injury around with her. But the question was, what really happened? Was it a question of her intentionally driving into the oncoming traffic to commit suicide, as she appeared to be threatening to do, or was it purely an accident? And the only way you can really determine that with any degree of certainty or accuracy is by very carefully looking at the evidence that was compiled by the accident scene reconstructors. And it puts the viewer in the position of trying to figure that out.
You know, when I was a cub reporter many years ago at a magazine, and I was pretty young, and I had an editor explain to me what he was looking for in detailed stories for print, but the same thing I think goes for broadcast. He said, you're looking at a beach, and he says, there's a grain of sand. I want you to pick up one grain of sand, and I want you to put that grain of sand under the microscope, and that's where your story is going to come from. Is that kind of the approach here? It's something that people thought they knew about.
Sure. Yeah. You know, you hear a story and you think, oh, okay, I get it. But then when you look at it more carefully and when you take it apart piece by piece and speak to the people involved, hear about their lives, how it's impacted them, what their attitudes toward it may be, it changes your perspective. And that perspective is always changing. The more people you talk to, the more perspective tends to change. So it becomes harder and harder to jump to conclusions. Sometimes, you know, after a famous case has been on television or in the newspaper a lot, people develop hard and fast opinions about what's right and what's wrong, about what really happened or what didn't happen, guilt versus innocence. But when you look at it more carefully and spend some time with it, it often becomes more difficult to determine.
Let me ask you a more general NBC News question. There are now two news magazines on the network.
Right.
Your show,
Dateline, huh?
Right, and and Rock Center. And what I'm wondering is, has word come down, have there been editorial meetings with the two or separately to determine what's a Rock Center story and what's a Dateline NBC story?
No, there haven't been. But we have the executive in charge of both programs is David Corvo, a man I've worked with for many years now. He is a wonderful editor, a man with a terrific grasp of journalism and what people want to be able to watch on television. So he has a kind of an umbrella interest in both programs. I think what will happen is that Dateline will continue to do the kind of material that we have been doing recently. And the sorts of stories we used to do 20 years ago and don't do now, because we've kind of morphed out of those areas, will be done by this new program, which is a more classic news magazine kind of format, along with Ryan Williams' personality, of course, which is one of the reasons they were able to make this happen.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of personality, that guy. I don't know where it's going to work out for him or not, but he's got a little personality. And that actually, that leads me to my last question for you. Okay, Brian Williams challenges Lester Holt to a best-of-3 arm wrestling. And I want to know, who do you put your loons on?
Oh, boy. You know what? I'm going to tell you. I think I'd put my money on Lester Holt. Lester's one tough dude. Nice guy, by the way.
Yeah?
But he's tough. He's out there with that kind of foreign correspondent shirt on all the time, and places where most people would be a little loath to go. There's old Lester.
Way to support the brand, Keith. Way to support the brand.
Well, I like Lester a lot. You know, hardest working man on television. I love Brian. Great guy, but you know, I love Lester too.
It's been great to watch Lester's rise. I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Well, folks, listen, you can see NBC News correspondent Keith Morrison on Friday nights at 10 p.m. on the news magazine Dateline NBC. Keith, are you out there in any kind of social media? Will people find you doing any of that stuff?
Oh, I'm being dragged kicking and screaming into it. Yes, I think I'll be on the program tonight. I'll be on Facebook or Twittering or something.
Okay. Well, good luck with that, sir. Keith Morrison, thank you so much for joining us on Mr. Media today. It was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Take
right.
good care.
You too. Bye-bye. For more original interviews, surf over to our main website, mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. If you've enjoyed today's show, subscribe for free to Mr. Media via email, RSS, or iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Another good idea? Download our new free Mr. Media mobile app in the Android market. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many parts of the Internet. Show your support of Mr. Media by supporting our sponsors, including Audible. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/radio. Again, that's audibletrial.com/radio for your free audiobook. We're also supported by thepartyauthority.us. Call DJ Ira for all your party entertainment needs nationwide at 1-800-DIAL-DJs or visit their website, thepartyauthority.us. If you've got an idea for a guest, a comment on today's show, or would like to advertise on Mr. Media Radio, email me directly at bob@mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. You can also call our 24-hour listener line at 1-727-498-4711. Some messages may be used in an upcoming show. And unless you live next door to Mr. Media, there may be a toll charge. You can also follow Mr. Media on Facebook, Twitter, or our new YouTube and Vimeo video channels. Thanks so much for joining us today. I always appreciate you sharing a piece of your day with Mr. Media. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Hi, this is George Kennedy. I have a book out. It's called Trust Me. You know what the book is about? The book is about me looking you straight in the eye and telling you the truth about whatever. I tried really hard to tell the truth about everything that came across my way. I hope you get a chance to look at it. Thank you.